have recently come to the realization, slash, I guess, started to accept that for a little over 2.5 years of my life, I lived in what I now consider almost definitely a cult. And I was talking to some girls about it over the weekend, but I was out for my birthday and I was kind of like, ooh, this is entering major bummer territory, so I don't really want to talk about it right now. But also, the truth of the matter is that ever since these dots have kind of all started connecting for me, I have been wanting to talk about it all. And since my therapist is still on maternity leave, here I am, and we're gonna talk about what I would definitely call a cult that I lived in for 2 years in middle school. So for most of my younger childhood, I went to a pretty just standard non-denominational Christian church. It was very welcoming, very moderate, nothing crazy. And then when I was in later elementary school, my parents started taking us to this Pentecostal church that was an Assemblies of God church. Now, I'm not trying to attack anyone's beliefs, so I'm not gonna say that this church itself was inherently the problem, although I absolutely do think that a lot of the teachings and doctrines, while they may not have explicitly told people to isolate themselves, if nothing else, there was kind of the suggestion that you ultimately shouldn't associate closely with anyone who doesn't share your religious beliefs. This church also had what I would definitely consider to be a charismatic leader. Like I said, I can't generalize about all Assemblies of God churches, but the specific church I went to absolutely had a leader that had way too much undue influence over at least certain members of the congregation's lives, and my family fell into that group, which I'll get into. My parents are really musical and both really talented, so they both quickly became involved in the music and worship team at that church, and pretty soon they were in charge of it. And at that church, being in charge of the music was almost like being a lower level pastor. They were essentially considered like some level of church leaders, and once that started, their relationship with our church pastor got kind of weird. It definitely felt like once they were in a higher position with the church, they kind of had to do what he said. And it wasn't just faith-based stuff. This guy was really too involved in our lives and general decision making. Another overtly weird thing about this church is that it had a really close relationship with a faith-based rehab group, kind of in the area, but like almost an hour away from the actual church. I know I named Assemblies of God by name, but that doesn't tell you the exact church, and I'm not going to tell you what faith-based rehab this is because I don't want to get in trouble, but also it's not rocket science, you can figure it out. This was a faith